Hello, emerging mothers. Hello, hello, hello. Listen, thanks for joining me, of course, on Instagram and in our Facebook Live. I will wait for a few more of you all to come in. But listen, I must admit to you all, I just got out of the car from driving 15 hours from Texas to Colorado to get my oldest daughter settled in. So I thank you all for being here. Just got out of the car. My daughter's in there checking us into the hotel. I already grabbed my green tea. Oh my goodness, I love green tea. And then also I have my cookie as well. I saw this on the way to the business center. And so I said, you know what? I may need to quench my thirst. So I said, let me just go ahead and get my green tea right now. And then I saw the cookies on the desk. And so, of course, I grabbed one and then headed to the business center. So thank you all so much for being here. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That green tea is delish. That green tea is so delish. So listen, and I'm not here to promote green tea or the Hilton family, although I do, every time I stay in a hotel, I do something under the Hilton family. I love their hotels. So this is what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about our teens making good social choices. That's what I want to talk about. I want to focus in on that, them making good social choices, good social changing. I want to make sure that our teens are making good snap judgment decisions. And so that's going to be our focus, at least for the next 15 or 20 minutes or so, no longer than about 30 minutes. I like to make these short, but then also to the point, direct, straightforward, and also meaningful. So when we think about our teens and them making good social choices, I think about, what is a good social choice? What is that all about? And when I think about social choices, I think about our teens having the ability to make constructive choices about social interactions with people and personal behavior based on ethical standards and social norms, and taking in consideration safety concerns as well. And these choices, of course, that our teens make, we want them to make sure that they are understanding the consequences of their actions and considering others. So all of that is entailed in our teens making good social choices. That they're considering the social norms, that they're considering safety of themselves and others involved, that they're embracing ethical standards. They're taking in consideration the consequences that the consequences of their behavior and their actions, and then also they're making sure that they're considering others. So we want to make sure that all of that is taking place when it comes to our teens, of course, making good social choices. So let's do a deep dive into that just a bit. So when we talk about them making good social choices, as you're watching and as you're, listening in on conversations, maybe your teens are talking to their friends and they're over at the house, or maybe, I don't know, they may see some friends maybe at the store, or maybe, they're on the telephone or something along those lines. I'm curious to know, when they make good choices, are they able to establish, of course, new relationships? How are they going about establishing that? How are they able to have meaningful dialogue between them and other people so that they're not remaining isolated all within themselves? So when we talk about our teens making good social choices, we think about how do they reach out? And I'd even like to ask you all right here, right now, how do your teens make new relationships? Because I know there are some teens, when they're in a new environment, they just kind of sit back and they observe the scenery and they observe, what others are doing in the room. And then they may, chime in with maybe a comment or a story along those lines. Or some teens, they come into a room and they're just instantly the life of the party. So I'd like to ask you all, how do when we talk about teens making good social choices, how do your teens establish new relationships? So think about that, and then even jot it in the chat, if you will. How do they go about doing that? Because when we talk about those social choices, just, making a decision on what to say and how to say it. so that our teens are, of course, able to build those meaningful relationships. And then also, when it comes to teens making good social choices, then how do they go about, like, say, for instance, if they're in a classroom setting, how do they take the initiative, or how do they lead an effort? What is their conversation like? Do they just instantly raise their hand and they have conversation with the teacher in reference to wanting to maybe be the leader on a project, or maybe they're in a sport or something along those lines, and they're wanting to play a lead role on a team or something along those lines? How do they go about demonstrating their skills so that they are able to be a leader on a team? What choices, what do they think through in reference to being that leader, if you will? And so we think about choices because there's a wrong way and there's a right way in order to establish themselves and take the initiative, if you will. So making sure that they're able to establish and maintain healthy relationships is key. And then also them having the ability to understand, of course, their own emotions, their own thoughts, and their own values, and how they would go about influencing others if they were to be a leader on the team. So when we think about, again, choices, those are the types of things that we'll want our teens to understand so that they're able to say the right things, they're able to do the right things so that they can be able to establish themselves. And when they transition on the outside of your front door and they're on the college campus, they will want to know certain things to do in order to build those relationships, because a lot of times do they go off to school, whereas some of their high school friends are with them? A lot of times not. And if that's the case, again, they will want to know how to make those healthy social choices. Also, when we think about teens making good social choices, do they make the right choice when it comes to displaying empathy? And I ask that because are they able to recognize, appreciate, or understand another person's state of mind or their emotions? And if they are, what do they say? How do they go about displaying that empathy? Do they hug the person? Do they make the choice to share words such as, I'm so sorry that happened to you, and, is there anything I can do to help? What is it that they say so that the other person can actually receive their sympathy? And they can know that they are just right in the same space as they are, and that they can even open up and talk to your teen, your son or your daughter, about what it is they may be going through. That's how friendships also are formed. Or is there this flippant persona, whereas there's a disconnect in reference to that, those interactions. So being able to make good social choices when they see the emotions or they hear the thoughts of other people, that's key as well. And in order to make sure that they are socially aware, they want to just make sure that they're able to understand the perspective of others and again, be able to empathize. There are a number of people, many people who are from diverse backgrounds. Here I'm African American, others Caucasian, Hispanic, Pakistani, Asian. There are different cultures, and so sometimes individuals empathize, or individuals show sadness in a different kind of way. And considering whatever culture our teens are around, again, we'll want them to be able to make good social choices so that they're able to display empathy appropriately. Okay? And then also being able to, of course, practice self-control. That has a lot to do with making good social choices, because guess what? If we're out of control, or our teens are out of control, do we or do they even have, of course, the wherewithal to make good social choices? So having the ability to recognize and regulate one's own thoughts and actions so that, of course, the emotions and the behavior are in line so that in that moment, the display of emotions and the display of the thoughts are still appropriate and that we're successful in that area. Because the last thing we want to do is there to be a wrong choice made, of course, because our thoughts and our behavior are less than in line, of course, with the situation that we're facing. So working on those things with our teens are so very important, because what we want to do is we want to make sure that self-management is in place, and them having the ability, of course, to manage their own, of course, emotions, thoughts, behaviors effectively, because they'll be placed in different situations, whether they're still at home or whether they have transitioned out of the home. Then we want to make sure that, of course, their behavior, the emotions, the thoughts, all are in place so that, of course, when they're making their social choices, they're appropriate given the situation that they're facing. So last but not least, I want to make sure that, of course, when our teens are making good social choices, that they take in consideration, number one, the consequences as they're considering the different options to the problem or to the situation that they're facing, that they're understanding the consequences and what that entails. And sometimes it's good for us to encourage our teens to just go with their gut feeling. Sometimes, we feel a certain kind of way, or our teens do, and guess what? That's the right choice to go with. And so when they present that to us as their mothers, then of course, sometimes that's the right decision to go with. So let's make sure that we encourage them to go with that, especially if we feel that way, because of course, that feeling sometimes is strong, and they're able to, especially if they're teens, they know what they're thinking, they know what they've been through, and they're able to make wise decisions. So, a lot of times it's good for us to encourage them to go with their gut decisions. Then also, it's also good sometimes when we're in a conversation with our teens, it's okay to play devil's advocate, so that we can see that situation from all different corners, and we can ask them, well, have you considered this? Or, well, what if that happens? Or have you have you had to make a decision like that before? And what was the outcome of that? And then, and if you have, of course, do you want to go down that same route? Or do you want to make a different decision because maybe you want a different outcome? So it's okay playing devil's advocate when we're interacting and when we're having meaningful dialogue with our teens. Also, next, we want to make sure that we are, of course, encouraging our teen to keep their eyes on the prize, to keep their eyes on the ball, because sometimes, they can be faced with a number of different choices, but guess what? Is that going to get them to that end result? Sometimes there's so much coming at our teens, and so many decisions to make and so many choices to make. And guess what? A lot of times it's good to just push those ones that are keeping us from our eyes being on the prize. It's good to help them to maybe move some of those other choices out of the way. So if it's going to college, what? Do we need to be looking for an apartment? Do we, maybe off of the college campus, maybe that first year, that second year, listen, let's remain on campus. You're closer to the library. You're able to, not have to worry about roommates and all of those different types of things. Let's keep our eyes on the prize. What is going to help our teen get that degree and with the least amount of distractions possible? We want to make sure that we're encouraging them to do that. And then also, guess what? Whether they're inside of our homes, mothers, or whether they're outside of our homes, what? We want to make sure that they're prioritizing their priorities. Listen, avoid crying over spilled milk. Listen, some things that happen to us that we're unable to control, let's leave that in the past and let's keep moving forward with whatever it is that we need to do. Wasting a number of days, a number of months, or maybe what has happened in the past, we want to make sure that we, avoid, listen, crying over spilled milk. Let's keep it moving. Let's keep putting one foot in front of the other. Then guess what next? Listen, I'm dropping some gems. I'm tossing some tips. Another thing that we want to encourage in reference to our teens making good social choices, we want to make sure that they are being aware of any social pressure that they may be facing. Away with any social pressure, we want to make sure that they are making their own decisions. Of course, they may think about what their friends may say or what their friends may consider. But listen, we want to encourage them to do what is best for them, because they're going to be the ones to have to live with that decision. And I think about, my oldest daughter right now. And the last time we were in Colorado, when it came time when we were out looking for apartments and townhomes and those types of things. And and of course, I would allow her to guide and lead those tours with the leasing office professional. And I would say nothing at the very beginning of the tour. And then I would allow for her to turn to me and say, well, Mom, do you have any questions at all? And of course, yep, I would always have some questions. So I would jump in with my questions. And then when it came time at the end of that tour, of course, what would happen is that person would ask my daughter, well, if she was ready to sign up or if she's ready to move to the next step or to the next level. And then I would make sure that I would zip it, because the last thing I would want to do is put any pressure on her regarding the place that I liked or the place that I thought was most appropriate for her. Listen, she's going to have to live there. So I was making sure that I was, making sure that my opinion remained away from the table and that she was able to make that good choice as it pertains to where she's going to live here in Colorado. And so we want to make sure, so that as well, making sure that we're avoiding any pressure at all in reference to decisions such as that. But then she's a young adult, so we do give more input when we have teens, but by the same token, when they become adults, then of course we begin to take a couple of steps back and allow them to make their own decisions. Also, I will share a few more and then I will let you all go. I want to also, from a personal perspective, now that's like social and that's, out and about and them having a meaningful dialogue with others and making sure that behavior and emotions and their thoughts are in place and that they're able to, to have healthy relationships with others. But listen, when it comes to them, I want these to be geared towards them, that they're making good choices for them. That number one, those things I would encourage you mothers to encourage them right now before they transition out of the home, to move more towards, of course, doing things towards the careers that they're going to love. I can remember my oldest daughter, of course, before she even left out of the home, of course, we were, thinking engineer focused because that's what she was going to major in. And so, whether it was thinking through some camps or any other thing. Oh, and I just received a notification that the sound was low on Instagram. And so let me try to focus on turning that up right now. But we wanted to do things that were, of course, engineer focused, whether it was, thinking, about some camps she can participate in. And so because we wanted her to move towards that career choice. And of course, she's an engineer today, has landed a position, and we're super duper. That's the reason we're in Colorado right now, because of course she begins on the 7th. And so I would encourage you to encourage them to do things right now to move towards the career that they love. And then also, listen, I would encourage them, to make the choice of, reading a book every day. That way, guess what? Not only are they learning more on a regular basis, but guess what? The quickest way I can travel, and I reside in Texas, but the quickest way I can leave Texas from a mental perspective is to read a book. I can be over in one of the Asian countries. I can be, maybe over in the Bahamas because I'm reading a book about something that's going on regarding the Bahamas. I can read about a certain profession and be engulfed in that profession just from reading a book. So encourage them to read a book every day. And this is to enhance enhance them and to encourage them and inspire them and to motivate them to make a good choice. Reading a book every day. Listen, exercising. Some of your teens, they exercise on a regular basis, and I'm unable to encourage that enough to remain healthy. Did I exercise when I was a teen? Absolutely not. I did not, and I thought people who exercise was crazy. That wasn't the background I came up. I was raised in. Okay, I might be a size 4 right now, but I wasn't always a 4. Listen, I grew up and I was a 12. I was double my size, and I love to eat, did not exercise, and I made some bad choices. So I'm trying to encourage you so that, of course, your teen can make good choices. So also, my 9th grader right now, of course, she's making her own doctor's appointments. She's making her own dentist appointments. So begin to release so that they're able to do some of those things. Also, she receives an allowance as well so that she's able to make some money choices. And here soon, I'm going to give her the grocery list so that when we go to the store, listen, she is doing the grocery shopping, okay? We have got to make sure these teens are on track to become healthy, prosperous assets, not only to society, but also for themselves, so that they can be just productive adults, okay? And that teaching them how to save money. My daughters, we're going to sit down and we're going to begin to, of course, and my one who's going to be living here in Colorado, zooming in and just talk about investments and building their portfolios and making, dollar cost averaging into, maybe some mutual funds, or not equities, of course. We want to make sure that we're building with those funds, and then including some bonds and those types of things, so they can begin to build now that they're going to be working, and so they can make sure that they're saving, and then tithing as well. Encouraging you, of course, to encourage your teens to tithe. That's critically important as well. Yeah, I know in my family it is, and I would encourage in yours as well. Listen, thank you all so much for joining. I'm super, super excited that you all have just tuned in. And I want to remind you all, listen, there's going to be some blurbs in our private Facebook group about the workshop that's coming up, that I'm going to be doing a deep dive into some of these topics that we want to encourage our teens to do. Some of the things that they actually need to know before they transition out of the home. That's going to be the 25th to the 26th, the 27th. If you have yet to jump into our private Facebook group, search us. We're emerging mothers. When I think about emerging, I'm thinking about mothers who are emerging in their thinking. And when we change our thinking and we're doing and on track, then guess what? That changes our behavior. Kind of like when I start being an avid jogger, and now I'm away from jogging. I'm on my elliptical and up in the morning and doing my crunches and working on some abs and all of that. It started with the mind. And then the actions followed. And so that's what I want to encourage for you all to listen. It's the thinking emerging in our minds as it pertains to our teens. And then guess what? The actions will come. And just for some of you all, we've had some mothers join our group. And to tell you a little bit about myself, I'm Dr. Michelle Lloyd. I have 3 daughters. My oldest 2 already transitioned out of the home. One went to Virginia Tech, pursued engineering. My second one, of course, went to Mizzou. Oldest graduated in May. My second daughter graduated in December. So this is last year, 2021. So this has been like a lot of moving parts in 2021. I've just been on cloud 9 with these graduations. And so my oldest one, of course, engineer. My second one graduated in 3.5 years with departmental honors, of course, in biology, with a minor in psychology, and she's pursuing medical school. So, and then my third daughter, of course, our amazing Ivana, is in 9th grade. I'm trying to turn around and pour into you what we've done and how we've encouraged and motivated these daughters to just reach the highest heights that they can, and to think outside of the box, to exceed their boundaries, to spend their life doing what they want to do. And so that's what I want to encourage you all to do. So in addition to, of course, teaching about, how to prepare yourself for when your teen transitions out of the home, I'd like to, of course, prepare you to prepare them as well. Because for me, when I returned back home after dropping my daughter off at Virginia Tech, drove those 17 hours back, I found myself in my prayer closet on the floor wailing, thinking, what in the world have I just done? Dropping my daughter off in this wide world. And then my second daughter went off, and I did better, of course, because I practiced some principles and some strategies, and I like to teach you all that in our workshop. So search us, Emerging Mothers. We have a private Facebook group. You'll learn more about our workshop, our three-day workshop on the 25th, 26th, and also the 27th. I'd love to just pour into you all. Listen, this is my life mission. I want to make sure that other mothers are able to be more prepared than I was. I spent so much time preparing her. Emotionally, I was not prepared at all, but I can teach you how to do that. So again, I'm Dr. Michelle Lloyd. I appreciate and love you all. I'm sure that my daughter has us already checked in, and she has us in our room. We're in Colorado right now. I'll be leaving to Colorado to swing back to Texas. But every Thursday at 7 p.m., of course, I'll be doing these lives. And I look forward to seeing you all. Come back and see me. Mark your calendar. I'll see you next Thursday. Unless you see some pictures, of course, from Colorado. Thank you so much. Take care. See you next time. Bye.